We do have my dad, Bill Stewart, coming on because he watched Roger Clemens before just about everyone else in the grand scheme of things from his time at UT through the Red Sox and then beyond. So we've talked about at this point, he's not quite a phenom. He's not, this big ego guy like some guys at his level were, like Barry Bonds was at Arizona State. And he comes in, and by full year 2, 86, he's the best pitcher on the planet. He's the MVP. He's the Cy Young winner. His team is within and out of the World Series title a couple of times. We won't get into that just yet. But when was the first warning sign of, oh, what did he say? Like, this guy's kind of a dink.
Yeah, I don't remember a warning sign. You're more of a historian. You may have read something that was a trigger incident. It just kind of evolved.
And I do want to, like,
every time he opened his mouth, it was just after that.
Good,
the first year he was an endearing young guy, but as he gets a little bit older, there's this arrogance that comes through, and you want a pitcher who's arrogant. You want a guy who thinks he can strike out anybody. He can come into any situation. He can pitch that extra inning. You want that kind of arrogance. But when it extends to the community, to the locker room, to dinner with his teammates, to interviews with the media, to incidents with fans, it grows old really fast. And to an extent, you put up with it when the guy is leading the league in victories and ERA and strikeouts and shutouts and complete games and ERA and all that. But then when he becomes a 500 pitcher over the last 4 years of his career, you just can't erase it. The dinkiness overtakes the performance.
Yeah. And I think there's a couple important parts in there. And the first one being, which we haven't really addressed yet, is like, the Red Sox of my youth are very different from the Red Sox you grew up with for a long time. I think the old adage around the 80s, in fact, was 25 guys, 25 caps.
Yeah.
And so it's like he probably didn't even stand out all that much. And the other thing, like you talked about the intensity, like we in 2016, it must have been, we were lauding Chris Sale at the dinner table. He was already a Red Sox target at that point because he took scissors and cut up the team's throwback uniforms that they were going to wear that day he pitched because he didn't like them. Yeah. And we said, hell yeah, that's the kind of balls we need on this team. And so Clemens has that. And I wanted to ask that because I wanted to go through the lens of a Red Sox fan. I texted Pete Souza from the Pete Souza Show last night because he's a big, 80s, 90s sports guy. And I'm telling him about this video I'm watching. And he goes, yeah, but I don't even know if we knew he was a dink back then. He was just a big part of the sports landscape, the way that Jordan was. And Jordan was kind of a dick too. And I wanted to get back to see like where the Red Sox fans started to sour on him because I think it was well before 96 when he gets told he can walk.
Yeah, I think the first warning sign, and again, just to go back, you're talking about 25 guys, 25 caps. Yeah, you don't necessarily stand out as a dink in a clubhouse that has Jim Rice, who's a prickly personality, Dewey Evans, who's a loner, Wade Boggs, who's in his own little world, Oil Can, who's an eccentric. So it kind of fits in there. I think the first time was it 88 or 90 when he got tossed out of the playoff game? That's really, I mean, 90. You're in I think it was a 3-game playoff series, best of 3, maybe best of 5.
Yeah, they were facing elimination though.
They're facing elimination. Right, yeah. And what was it? He got tossed over balls and strikes.
Yes,
or something stupid.
This is like peak Clemens because he comes out, he comes out like looking like a different guy. He's got a goatee all of a sudden. He didn't have a goatee in the start before, and he's got eye black on. And you're like, what the hell is this guy doing? And then in like the second inning, he's arguing balls and strikes, and he just gets tossed. And the next thing you know, there are like 4 or 5 Red Sox holding him back, like one on the like couple on the legs, couple on the arms, as he's trying to get at whoever the umpire was. He gets suspended the next year because he threatened to kill the guy. This is peak Roger Clemens right there. And I'm glad that that's the one that that's the incident that you think of, because I think by 1990, the media has definitely soured on the Roger Clemens effect. Because, and I'll bring up a thing that Clemens would bring up all the time, the 1990 Cy Young. Bob Welch wins 27 games that year and gets the award. Clemens destroys him in every other major category. Yeah. His ERA is a whole run less. His ERA plus, which I get it, you didn't have at the time, was 86 points better. He had 80 more strikeouts. His strikeout per nine is way higher. He had 23 less walks. He walked 54 guys in how many innings here? 228 innings. His walk percentage way better, and yet Bob Welch gets the award. So I think the media is also souring on Roger Clemens at this point. And then he kind of gets into the wilderness after that. You mentioned the last 4 years of his time in Boston, or he's a 500 pitcher. Dan Duquette says he's in the twilight of his career. And they actually offer him they offered him a 4-year deal in 96. That's not bad for a guy at that point. I mean, he's 13 years into his career at that point, and is a 500 pitcher. So instead, another thing that endears him so much to Red Sox fans, he says, I'd like to get closer to home in Houston. So, of course, naturally, he signs with the Toronto Blue Jays. He has Jose Canseco as a teammate. He gets much bigger randomly, starts winning pitching triple crowns. And before you can even blink an eye and think of an accusation, he's a New York Yankee, which is just about the best thing you could do to endear yourself to the Red Sox fans. Not that he's necessarily thinking about that at that point, but are we at total ground zero there? There's no coming back. I mean, this is obviously pre-2004, very much Curse still in there, peak of the rivalry.
Yeah, absolutely. The whole closer to home thing was ridiculous. The Yankee thing, it's just great because you're going to hate any Red Sox who goes to the Yankees. And with Roger, it's a layup.
Yeah, I mean, it's so easy.
It's a layup. It's so easy for even your pink hat fans to hate Roger Clemens because he's Roger Clemens and he's a Yankee. That's I don't know what could be the third thing for a triple crown there. No, I mean, he's just cleared the field there.
And so at this point, you've got most of his major controversies. I just wrote them down shorthand. You've got the A's ejection, closer to home. Hank Aaron, after he won the MVP in 86, Hank Aaron, with a non-controversial take, said pitchers shouldn't be able to win MVP because position players can't win the Cy Young. And he said, how about if Hank Aaron was playing today? I would crack open his skull and tell him how valuable I am. Yeah, one of the great guys in baseball history going after him. We've got Mindy McCready. I don't think we knew about it at that point. The country singer he had the 10-year affair with that started when she was 15. Him wanting his Red Sox teammates to refer to him as Rocket Man. The infamous luggage incident. Him bitching up and down all over that he has to carry his own luggage in the airport. Roger Clemens, how could you?
Well, that was the day before rolling suitcases, don't forget, in his defense.
And who would put that much strain on his pitching shoulder to carry his luggage through Logan? And then we've also got, in the 2000s, we have got, when he pitched in the World Baseball Classic, they asked him about the great culture and fans that Japan and Korea had in the U.S. And he said, yeah, all the dry cleaners were closed that day. You get 50,000 of them in Anaheim Stadium. So that was not great either. But I want to bring up, so he obviously has this back and forth, right? After 2003, he goes to Houston, or he said, his mother had died and her dying wish was that he would just retire. And then 3 months later, he was signing with the Astros. Wins another Cy Young in 2004, has his lowest ERA ever in 2004, then retires, then unretires. And this is like Brett Favre before Brett Favre. And this leads me to something that I don't know if you remember, but there is a bit of lost media with Roger Clemens and the Red Sox. And I'm certain that this tape has been destroyed. And if we can find it anywhere, I need to have it. because in the spring of 2006, Clemens was out of retirement again, and he was a free agent. There were teams bidding for him, and one of them was the Red Sox. And there was a third grade classroom in Rockland, Massachusetts, that had an in. They had a baseball crazed teacher whose brother worked for Nesson, and they wanted to make this pitch video to Roger Clemens. And one of the things they had was this third grade classroom that you wouldn't know I was a part of. Being the biggest Red Sox fan in that class, I was not selected to give a message to Roger Clemens. But it was this whole schmaltzy thing. Come home, Roger. Apparently, Debbie was crying when they showed it to him. And then you get the infamous, Roger is in George Steinbrenner's box. And it's this crazy thing. So the Red Sox in 06 or 07 are ready to go out and get Roger Clemens again and team up with his buddy Curt Schilling, who he said saved his career. Wow. Would that have done anything to rehab his image with the Red Sox to come back after they've won the World Series, after the Yankees thing is a little bit more buried?
I don't think it would have hurt him. I think there were, I mean, how much of it is the laundry you're wearing? Yeah. He's still Roger Clemens, but now he's your guy. So we
rooted for Manny at the same time. He was an a-hole.
Yeah. So I think a lot of fans would have turned and forgotten, and you had a different generation of fans, not only younger kids like you coming up who didn't live through the early Roger, but people who weren't following the Red Sox when they weren't that good. And now that, as you say, they've won the World Championship, you got a lot of new people on board who are from other places and don't know the 80s and 90s history of Roger in Boston. That probably would have helped him rehab some. But then, ultimately he's got to open his mouth.
Yeah, which is the problem. Yeah.
Yeah. And that gets him into trouble.
So two more quick things, because I won't even, because we already kind of know the steroid story. We don't even need to bring that up. That's such a, there's so much, it's like the Pete Rose gambling thing. There's so much other stuff that you could point to, right? But two more things. First one being, we talk about how that could have rehabbed him, and he's come back on some Red Sox broadcasts now. They have not given out the number 21 since he's left. Do you see any way that there is a Roger Clemens day, that there's a Roger Clemens number retirement ceremony? And I'll think back to a quick aside. Jamie Carragher talked with Michael Owen a few years ago, two Liverpool legends. Michael Owen came up in the Liverpool system, was a local guy, so he was worshipped. He won European Player of the Year. And then he left to go play for Real Madrid. And after he did that, he kind of bounced around. He ended up playing for Manchester United and a couple different clubs in England. And Jamie Carragher asked him, he said, you should have been a legend at Liverpool. Do you feel you're loved by any of the fan bases that you played for? And he said, no. And I think Roger Clemens would fall into that same category. Is he a Red Sox? Is he a Yankee? I mean, maybe because he played in Houston, that helps out. But is there any way that you see an actual ceremony and Roger Clemens getting a standing ovation and being beloved by the Red Sox?
Well, first, let me ask, do you think Roger has the self-awareness to answer that question? No, I'm not sure he does.
No, he doesn't. No, he does not.
No, I don't see it. I mean, maybe if there'd been a world championship there, more would have been forgiven.
She could have done it. 07, could have done it.
Yeah, and I'm trying to think, has he ever even been in the Legends box at Fenway? For those fans who, outside of Boston listening to your show, the Red Sox always have a legend at every game. He sits in a box high above home plate, and they'll introduce him in the fourth inning. And it's Fred Lynn. It was the late Louis Tion. It's Carlton Fisk. It's Dwight Evans. It's Jim Rice. It's these guys who made their name in Boston. Bill Lee, Spaceman Bill Lee, sure. Always a fan favorite. Yeah. And they'll take a bow to the fans, and the fans cheer, and there's a little clip on the center field scoreboard, and these guys are really adored. I don't know whether they've done that with Clemens.
I doubt it. And he does come back once in a while because he'll do that Jimmy Fund stuff, and he'll do take the auction off batting practice with Roger, and he'll obviously brush you off the plate once or twice for a nominal fee. But I don't think they ever have, which is pretty interesting because A, he's been there right? He's been in Boston.
He's been in Boston. He's been on the broadcast. I mean,
right.
when they have the Jimmy Fund stuff, Roger is in the TV booth, so he's doing that. But I just wonder whether that would be a good test of what fans think. Put him in the Legends box a couple of times and see what the reaction is.
And the other interesting part about that is the person who would love that the most is Roger Clemens. No one loves Roger Clemens more than Roger Clemens does.
That's right.
So last question here, because we've gone a little long, but I said at the beginning he might be the biggest a-hole in Red Sox history. Now that's saying something. You've got your Pinky Higginses in there, right? You've got some truly despicable characters that have adorned the Red Sox jersey and represented this organization. Manny Ramirez being another one. Where is Roger on that Mount Rushmore? Is Roger right up there?
Yeah, I think he is. I mean, the biggest bust on that Rushmore is still probably Carl Everett.
Yeah, he burned brightly, not for a long time, but he certainly burned bright.
Yeah, man. you got to give him credit. A short stay, but he made his mark.
And there was always one, wasn't there? And, Carl Everett, then he's gone. Then you get a little bit of Shea Hillenbrand, and you kind of Julio Lugo. Then you start to you always have one. So. I think Roger's still on there. Certainly the modern Red Sox era from 67 on. He's got to be up there. I mean, Jim Rice was kind of prickly with the press. Yastrzemski's considered a dink, a charitable event. He's all about Couldn't
himself.
Couldn't leave one fast enough, yeah.
Yeah, but Roger's one of the four. Yeah.
He's in that Hall of Fame.
Roger's in there.
Man.
We are Rogue Media Sports.
Hey, thanks for stopping by. And if you like this video, be sure to give us a like and subscribe. It really helps out the channel a ton. You can follow me on Twitter here for some more outrageous Boston sports takes coming to you every weekday at noon Eastern time. And then after that, wherever you get your podcasts.
We are Rogue Media Sports.